Well, welcome to the Business Advisory Show. We're here with Andrew van DeBeek. Andrew, welcome and thanks for coming along.
Thanks, JP. Good to be here, buddy.
Appreciate it. We will get straight into it. Congratulations on a massive 12 or 18 months now, I guess, from last year. Andrew, Thought Leader of the Year 2018. Now international speaker on the circuit.
Yeah, mate, it's been pretty incredible. It was like 12, 18 months ago winning that award was definitely not something I expected, and then I just guess the experience I've been able to have over the last kind of 12 odd months, speaking and meeting with a lot of people and sharing what I'm passionate about and hopefully encouraging others in their journey in the accounting space too has been really cool.
Yeah, absolutely, which we've all enjoyed. So straight into our business advisory questions on the show. So the first one, of course, is what does business advisory mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's we can try and put fancy words on things, we can try and gloss things all up, but for me, you have a business, it has a direction and it needs to be heading in a certain direction. So I think advisory is encapsulating what that journey looks like and helping to guide people along the way. And I think people have different skill sets to be able to be involved in that type of process. Sometimes I think people think they know far more than they actually do, and therefore they start trying to give advice to businesses where actually they don't know what's going on and they might be harming that business. But I think when you understand in terms of what that process looks like and the skill set you have, I look at that as an accountant and then as a business advisor and say, okay, where can I interject myself along this journey to ensure these clients or these people who are running businesses have the advice at the right time, so they can continually have their eyes set on the goal, the future of where they're trying to go, but have an understanding and appreciation of the things that need to be happening along that way. Because most of us, I put myself in the same boat as well, most business owners are doing it for the first time. Or maybe they've run businesses before, but what they're experiencing in their business is new because it's the first time they've ever had to do it in that situation. So there might be a lot of things that they've never experienced before and they don't know what that is. So they need to be able to trust someone to hold their hand properly and guide them through that process. And hopefully they can find the right kind of people that can actually give them honest, genuine advice to help them along the journey rather than just trying to make a quick buck out of people who are desperate for advice.
Yeah, so true. And what do you, open-ended question, but what would be your comment around the fact that the accounting industry is really struggling to frame business advisory, or many accountants feel like they are?
Yeah, I think many accountants should not be business advisors, if I'm totally honest. I mean, the culture and the history of what we've done is that we've been a transactional-based industry. People come in, we lodge a document, we keep people out of jail. That's what I call compliance, keeping you out of jail services. That's historically what a lot of us done. Now, inadvertently amongst doing that, we've been working with businesses, and as a result of that interaction, a lot of accountants have started to understand a lot of things that businesses go through by either viewing other people going through it or by going through it themselves at the same time. So I think it's really important there as they go through that journey is that accountants understand, well, what do they actually know? What are they actually capable of? What are they skilled at doing? And how can they go about communicating that? Because that communication is probably the second part of the problem here. One is, do accountants actually have a skill set to be able to deliver this type of advice? And if they do, hey, make sure you're doing it appropriately. But two, how do you go about communicating that? Because once again, let's chuck this stereotype of the accountants out there. Accountants seem to be a little bit dweeby, a little bit boring, not particularly good at communicating, which I think on a whole is probably incorrect. Accountants are just people. We're just humans who happen to do accounting work. But if you can learn how to communicate really well, and if you actually help to express and walk through a situation with a client in a way that brings clarity and they can understand, then I think accountants can deliver that type of business advice easily. I often refer to it as like, I should never be talking at my client. I should never actually be talking to my client. I should be talking with my client when I'm working with them. And what that means is I'm not talking in their language. I'm still talking in my language, but I'm talking in a way that they can appreciate and they can understand. And I think because we live in such a technical-based industry where there's rules and regulations and laws and all these kind of things from accounting and tax and everything in between, is that often we feel like we have to run through every single minute detail of something, where realistically sometimes clients just need to understand the key components and trust that we're doing our job in the background to make sure that the other stuff's happening as well.
Yeah, well done, thank you. In terms of as a business itself, your company, what do you do? And forgive me if you've kind of segued into that already, but what do you do as a business beyond being an accounting firm, and how does that help business owners?
Yeah, sure. So I always find it weird. You talk to like business life coaches out there are like, when you tell people what you do, don't tell them what you do. You need to tell them something abstract. Like, I release people from pain issues. It's like, no, but what do you actually do? Oh, I'm an acupuncturist. Okay, well that makes sense now. I know what you do. So the same thing I find with me is that, and with our business, is like, hey, look, at the core of it, we are accountants. Like, at the core of it, we do the things that everybody presumes accountants do, but we go beyond that. And so if I can then push into the fluffy stuff, we say that Illuminate wants our clients to get out of bed every single day and devote their time to what they value the most. We effectively see that as being, to some extent, freedom fighters, because I run a business and I recognise how much time I don't have as a result of when my business sucks me in and it doesn't release me or allow me to do things. And often that's my fault that I get sucked into there, but sometimes it's just the factors of running a business. And we see that in a lot of our clients as well. So we work predominantly with small businesses. When I say small business, I'm meaning like family-run businesses, people who just want to do better, who want to do good. We work with people that are growing and doing really interesting and crazy stuff, but realistically, we work best when we work with people who are really passionate about what they do, who understand what they want to do and value that process. They don't necessarily want to make $1 billion. To some extent, a lot of them just want to have a better, comfortable lifestyle for their family. Some of them just want to send their kids to that school that they want to go to. They want to be able to go on that annual holiday. Some of the really, really simple stuff. And we find that we work really well in that space because we say to our clients what we term as the Illuminate Golden Question. So if you could do one thing tomorrow morning, regardless of time, money, or location, with no restrictions at all, when you get out of bed, what would you do? And most people who run businesses, I don't believe, can answer that question easily. Because they've never really thought about it. And often we're told not to be selfish. So you can't think about that because that's not appropriate. But I think in this context, it's actually 100% appropriate. That's the most important thing. What do you want to do with your life? And is your business providing that for you? Is it growing and is it structured? Is it doing the things? Hence why I say we work really well with family-based businesses who have purpose, because when all of a sudden we're involved in businesses where there's multiple business owners on these things, you can have multiple different reasons, and often that business isn't really trying to drive that purpose. So it's kind of something that I've coined and I'm working around the background, this whole idea of purpose-based accounting. What does it look like to understand what you actually want out of your life? How do you make sure that your business is structured and put together in a way that helps to provide that? And then what are you doing in terms of decision making to get there? And the decision, we think, becomes much easier when, like, for example, answering that question might be, I want to pack my entire family into a plane, head to Disneyland and spend a couple of weeks at Disneyland. That's like literally what I would do tomorrow if I could. And we have one of our clients, that's one of their things is. So every time they're facing a decision they have to make in their business, we say, does it get you closer to or further away from Disneyland by making this decision? And it makes it more tangible for them. Instead of like, well, if you do that, you're going to make an extra 10% in profit, or you're going to have to pay an extra $13,000 in tax. All these things which are like true and they're factual, but like to a client, to someone who digs holes, to someone who fixes computers, to someone who does that stuff, those numbers don't make sense. What makes sense is, hey, I want to go to Disneyland. Okay, that gets you closer too, I can see that. But I'm going to try and talk in a language that does that. So what do we do at Illuminate? We do that. We have accountants, we have a bookkeeping business that we recently started up in the last month called Illuminate Your Books, because why not? We have kind of an innovation approach where we're using cloud technology to ensure that our clients can have an approach which hopefully maximises their time or gives them time back as well. And then we do the advisory and those other bits and pieces around there too. But like I said, the core of it is that I just want my clients to know what they want to achieve tomorrow if they could, and feel like they're on a journey to getting there. And that sometimes takes time. With some of my clients, it might take ages, but like if I go to one example, if I could go into detail here, mate. One of those examples is, I got this client, we'll call him, I won't use his real name, let's call him JP. Because you're not my client, so I can say that. So I got this client JP, and he's an Aussie. He's a surfer boy. We're on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria, right? So we get a lot of that type of like real chilled, laid out kind of people. And he runs a fantastic business. He runs a trades-based business. It's really successful. It's quite profitable. He's got a good team working around it. Not huge, but not small. And when he answered this question, his answer would be, I'd go for a surf. Something quite simple, nothing extravagant, because answering that question doesn't have to be extravagant. He would go for a surf every day. We're like, okay, cool, well, you're a tradie. So tradies often have to be on job sites at stupid o'clock in the morning. And then as a tradie, because he doesn't have a full back-end office team or anything like that, you're often finding that you're having to go home and then you're having to run all the receipts and reconcile things and make sure quotes are there, make sure your team's set up. Like, what are we doing at a point to ensure we're getting you to be able to go surfing every day? And he's been doing little bits and pieces, so he's using cloud accounting and Xero and other bits and pieces and whatnot, and trying to make sure he's got good people on board. But the kicker for me was probably about 9 to 12 months after having that original conversation with him. He calls me up and he's like, he's got this real Aussie bogan accent. I won't try and put it on because I'll ruin it. But he's like, hey Andrew, look, I've been overseas in Indonesia. I've had this job where I've been helping to kind of do all the trades-based work on this thing that they're putting together. I'm like, okay, cool, that sounds great. Like, how's it all going? He's like, I just want to double check this and that. Yeah, we gave him a little bit of advice on what that might look like. I'm like, so you're getting well paid for this? Like, heading over to Indonesia, he's like, I'm not getting paid at all, but I get to surf every day. And for him, he realised that those couple of weeks that he was going there to do those things could have been a financial thing, but if he was working his arms off and whatnot, he might not have been able to be. He saw that he got to surf every day. And for me, I go, cool, people start to get that stuff. What do you actually want to do? And is your business starting to provide and allow you to do that?
And that's such a great example, isn't it? Because I see a lot of accountants out there aspiring to be business advisors and bookkeepers as well, and yet they haven't simply wrapped their own mind around key provocative questions that are in fact important to themselves as business owners as well.
Yeah.
And until we do that, we don't recognise the purpose behind purpose-driven accounting that you're talking about, which is in fact to disrupt mediocrity and really have your clients aspiring for what they really want.
Because everybody, generalising, a lot of accountants think they have to deliver the answers. Client comes to us, asks a question, and we have to give the answer all the time. But I think in an advisory perspective, particularly working with businesses, it's not about answers, it's about questions. Because if I'm answering that on behalf of you, do you really believe what I'm saying? Do you really feel what I'm saying? Do you really connect to that? But if you're answering it, if you're the one that's coming up with that answer, and if then we whiteboard that out, if we sit down and we walk through what does that actually mean, you're believing that, you're walking out of that interaction going, yeah, I want to surf every day. That's actually what I want to do. Now, what can I do to go about making that happen? Someone a while ago told me this saying is like, if I can convince you to do something, someone next to me can equally convince you not to do it. You need to believe it. You need to make that decision yourself. Otherwise, that growth or that trajectory, all those things you're going to try and do, you might just stop doing it tomorrow because someone else says, it's actually a bad idea. And I think that's in advisory. I shouldn't be convincing you what to do. You should be believing it and developing it yourself. I should just be facilitating what that looks like.
Yeah, well done. Well done. And in terms of yourself as a business owner, the best business advisors are business owners that learn our own lessons along the way. What has been your most valuable lesson as a business owner?
Oh, mate. I have learned many a lesson over the last 6.5 years. I was 26 when I started an accounting firm, which for all intents and purposes is pretty dumb. I was young, I was inexperienced, but I had the allure of what it might look like, and I had a really good person on board that helped me get started, a business partner in the early days, which is no longer around as my business partner. But I think some of the biggest lessons I learned were probably after 4 years when I bought my original business partner out. And I realised that I didn't know what my business stood for. I realised that I'd never actually sat down and said, well, what do we want to achieve here? We talk about purpose personally, so I didn't have that, but I also didn't understand the purpose of my business. I just went, I'm an accountant, so I'll just do some accounting because everybody needs an accountant, right? And I didn't actually understand, well, why me? Why would they work with Illuminate? What is it that we actually stand for? What are we actually trying to achieve? That includes the why, we want our clients to get it. All that stuff didn't exist. We just were Illuminate. We had a tagline, which meant nothing. Strategy, clarity, prosperity. I don't know what that meant. We just thought that sounded cool, and we figured that people might want to work with us because we had a wicked tagline that meant absolutely nothing. So for me, I think the biggest lesson I learned is like understand actually what you're here for. Like why are you doing this? And to some extent, it's okay to say, well, I'm just really good at doing tax returns, and I want to do really good tax returns. If that's the case, that's fine. Make sure you're doing tax returns, not business advice. Like, what are you actually here to do? And for me, that was the catalyst going forward. And then if I can throw in a second one there, I think one of the biggest lessons that I've also learned is in terms of team communication and how you're working amidst a team. So we have a team of 10 at Illuminate. I'm a verbal thinker. So I often think out loud things that don't actually exist or aren't actually going to happen. I've had to learn in that environment where we're very open, we're very transparent, we try to be as vulnerable as we can as a team, that I still have to ensure that I'm communicating the right kind of stuff. As a business leader and as a business owner, if I'm verbally thinking everything and getting everyone involved in the whirlwind that goes in my head, they might be a very factual, literal person. Everybody's different. But if I'm thinking strategically about something that might happen, and then I've got this real literal person sitting next to me, they may be like, oh, that's what we're doing. And then it doesn't happen, and then they feel let down. So I've learned that I have to understand the differences between people and how I go about communicating the vision of the business and the direction of that to ensure that everybody is on board and no one feels left out.
Yeah, well done. In terms of your leadership style and your own personal approach to running the business, open-ended question, what's your own leadership style?
I guess I've been pondering this for a while. At the start of every year, I kind of write like a bit of a piece of what I think the year's going to be like. And in January this year, I wrote a piece. It's 2020 or 2019. Sorry, for me was the year of empowerment. And I recognise that my leadership style for a while is very much about I want everybody to have the opportunity to do things. I don't want to hold you back just because you're young, just because you look different, just because you like whatever that is. I don't want you to feel like you don't have the opportunity. I want to give you all of it. Now that means sometimes I'm throwing people in the deep end, but most/everybody I've ever been interacting with, I'd like to feel has learned to swim very quickly and then outpace me very quickly in terms of what they're capable of doing. But one thing I have learned is that I was very good at delegating and not particularly good at empowering. And I think there's a really different thing between that and a leadership style is that if I'm going to delegate something to you, I'm going to say, hey mate, go and do this. If I'm going to empower you to do it, I'm like, hey mate, I've got something for you to do. Can you sit down? I want to walk you through what that looks like. I'm not just saying this is what the result needs to be. I'm saying this is how best you can approach that. So you all of a sudden go, excellent, now I know how to do that. And then you might just find subtle little ways to improve it. Whereas if I just say go and do it, it needs to be done by Friday, you're like, crap. All right, well, like I've never done this before. Now I'm going to sit on Google for 6 hours to try and figure it out. I'm going to interrupt every single person in the office to ask them what they think, and then maybe come and deliver something that's not quite what I want. And then all of a sudden, Andrew, the leader, goes, oh, actually, that's not what I want, and I'm going to feel crap about that. So my leadership style now is trying to be more empowering, but it's also trying to recognise that my whole goal in my business is to make myself redundant. They'll talk about what would you do tomorrow if you do one thing. My thing is I would open a whiskey bar. Can't do that if I'm running an accounting firm that requires all of my time and all of my attention. So my goal is to try and make myself redundant. And I've got a couple of years left before a kind of target that I've set personally. And so what that means is in trying to empower and bring my team on board, give them responsibility, help them to understand where we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to go. But it's very much flat structured. Malcolm Gladwell talks a bit about weak link and strong link kind of cultures and businesses. I think he took the idea from somewhere else as well. Don't quote me on that. But the whole idea is like the difference between a weak link and a strong link, you can liken it to sports. So basketball would be considered to be a strong link sport because all it requires is 1, 2 or 3 superstars and that team's amazing. Soccer is considered a weak link sport because all you need is I'm not a soccer guy, so I'm just going to say a weak defensive player and all of a sudden a goal scored. One person does something wrong and that's it. Whereas basketball, it's very, very different. They're often scoring 100, 130 points a game. Soccer, 1 goal a game, if not nothing. So I look at that and say, as a business, is your business a strong link business? I.e., do you rely on that crazy sales guy who just like makes it rain and away it goes, and the success of the business hinges on having that rock star in place? Or is your business a weak link business where it says if we can improve the lower end of the skill set within our business is going to grow faster. And I want to see our business as being a weak link business, not from a negative perspective saying there are people who are not skilled, but from a perspective saying my focus should be on empowering those people to do more, be more, and whatnot. And as a result of that, they're going to start to take on responsibility and they're going to start to give back even greater to our community and to our clients, that our business will grow or become more efficient and more effective as a result of that. So weak link is definitely what I'm aiming for.
Well done, and I totally agree with that. And in fact, some of the stuff we love to teach is that the bench strength of the team, empowered, so talented people empowered, irrespective of their lack of experience, they will A, get it done as quickly as anybody else, with guidance, they'll get it done quickly and accurately as well. And that's the difference, isn't it? The weak link model allows you to, in fact, be a coach and a mentor rather than the champion that always saves the day and gets the job done.
I think it's hard in like the accounting profession as well, because we're often like saying, oh, well, let's try and hire in a junior. Do you know the most sought after accountant in the accounting industry? This is my opinion with no factual evidence. It's the intermediate accountant. Everyone's looking for an intermediate accountant. You know why? Because they want experience, but they don't want to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I want someone between 3 to 5 years experience that's going to cost me somewhere between, I don't know, 60 to 70 grand. When realistically you need someone who's going to cost you maybe 90 to 100 grand, but you can't afford that, but you can't afford to take on the 45, 50 grand junior who doesn't know what they're doing. Intermediate. So what it means is that in our businesses, we're often not bringing on and embracing the people who don't know anything, who come in with no preconceived ideas of how to do things, who might have a different perspective on what you're doing, and we're not getting that different set of eyes and that younger approach. And I say younger, I mean, I'm 33, so I'm still young in terms of the scale of things, although I'm feeling very old now that my 2 girls are starting to get big and show me that I'm not all that young. But I think the problem that we do face is that younger generation of accountants, particularly in small business accounting firms, much like mine, who, if all of a sudden we're going to put on a 21, 22-year-old who has no experience at all, we're really going to need our flock, our people, to look after that person. It takes a village to raise a child kind of mentality. Same thing when you bring on a brand newbie who has no experience. It takes the whole team to raise that, which means their focus often gets off what they have to do and onto that person, which might be good, but it's a challenge when you're in a small business that has clientele, that has expectations to be able to do that. So I think accountants, the more they can find better ways to bring on those younger people and have that weak link approach, let's bring on the youngies, let's empower them, let's grow them, and let's see where they go, as opposed to, nah, we've just got to keep bringing on that intermediate accountant who's got 3 to 5 years experience, who can do all the things that I want to, but isn't going to cost me an arm and a leg. Because they're pretty much non-existent at times, I find.
Yeah, well done. Pardon me. How would you describe your company's, your own business culture?
Yeah, culture is a good question. I'm actually working on a presentation at the moment for a conference with BGL on the whole idea of technology, people and culture. Because a lot of people have kind of said, oh, Andrew, you've got great culture and all these things. And I think it's just like, Andrew, you've got a beard and you look different. And they just assume that we have good culture as a result of being a really different business. And one of the benefits we've had is that we're able to kind of stick out a bit in terms of the accounting industry because we look a little bit different. But what I love is that I love it. It means that I get to speak to more people and share what I'm passionate about. But when it comes to culture, it's something that I've had to really understand and work on over time. What I used to think good culture was, smash beers, not faces. Right? We drink beers and we have fun. We don't, have a crack at people. That's not good culture. That just means you get along and you choose not to go anywhere. Good culture, I think, goes much, much deeper than that. It's actually understanding what your business stands for. It's understanding why your people are there. It's bringing on board and involving them in that process. And I think I'm an up and a down in terms of being able to deliver and have good culture. I care far too much about people. It's my strength and my weakness. I care so much about people that I care too much about what people think about me and all those things. I'm often trying to create an environment that might be overkill and not actually required. But I'd like to say that our culture at Illuminate is very rebel with a cause approach. So we're going to rebel and we're going to challenge things if we think it can get done a better way. I'd like to think that we're quite vulnerable. We had a staff member that was going through some stuff recently, feeling a bit overwhelmed at home and at work with some stuff that we were, giving them some responsibilities that were new for them. And they were visibly, we all could see that they were struggling. And the thing I love is that our team rallied behind them and individually or whatever, they all just kind of checked in on that person and said, are you okay? Can I help you out? Like, what's going on here? And that person then responded in Slack, which is a tool, an internal tool we use for communication, just to thank the team for what that is and reference back to like a podcast or a video that you watched recently about like emotional intelligence and these things. And so I really feel like you guys are in tune with that. And this is one of our newer team members as well. So for me, that what I see is like the culture is not necessarily coming from me. I mean, I have to set a tone, but realistically in this business that Andrew's becoming redundant, our culture has to be inclusive of everybody and respectful of that. So we try to have a space where you can come to work as you are. Often people say, leave your baggage at the door. No, I say bring your baggage in, just don't swing around and smack people with it. Because, like, respectfully, you're going through what you're going through, and I don't ever want to stop you from having to go through that. If you're having a bad day, have a bad day. Just be aware of how that impacts others, and be open to other people wanting to help you. And if you can do that, and we be open, we can be transparent, then I'd like to think that our culture will thrive as a result. And then people are willing to help each other out, head out for a drink, do any kind of crazy stuff. I mean, we're heading over on our team retreat for a few days, and we do a crazy thing called the op shop night, where everyone gets $20 and they've got 20 minutes. So in 20 minutes they have to go to an op shop and buy their entire outfit for the night. And then we all do that, and for some people they'd feel a little bit, oh gee, like last year I was wearing a sequin dress for the entire night, which was awkward. But at the same time, like, our culture is trying to drive and bring that and say, we're here to have fun, we're here to enjoy ourselves, we're here to have bring purpose to our clients, but also purpose and growth to us individually as well. That means we're going to be challenged, it means we're going to get stressed, it means at times we're going to respond in a way that we probably shouldn't. I mean, good example, just a week ago, one of my team kind of responded to me amidst our team in a way that was not appropriate. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I'm not a good conflict person. I'm really good at talking about the ideas, and actually enacting them sometimes is really hard for me in terms of the conflict. They came up to me an hour and a half later and said, I'm sorry, that was really, really inappropriate for me. And we went for we do what we call walk and talks. We just went out and walked around for 10, 15 minutes and just unpacked why that was, what he was going through, why he might have reacted in that way, how I felt as a result of that. And then came in, high-fived and carried on. Away we went. So I think it's definitely vulnerability and transparency, and then understanding that culture isn't just about getting along. Sometimes good culture is about not getting along and respecting the fact that you might not get along, but what are we doing to ensure that we're working toward a common goal there?
Yeah, I totally agree, and one of the biggest issues is either we tend to find leadership that most people will pigeonhole themselves. So they'll actually say, I'm this kind of leader or I'm that kind of leader. And therefore, if I'm not a great people person, I don't challenge myself as a leader to, in fact, foster a better culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's personality types can help you out with that. So we do Myers-Briggs for every single kind of recruitment process we get at a stage. Everyone does Myers-Briggs, and so we know it. We don't use it to say, we are or we aren't going to hire you. We use it to say, well, when you're on board, how can we get the most out of you? I.e., how do you receive instructions well? What do you look like when you're stressed? Like, what can we do to help you to grow? Like, all those kind of things. So I think as a good leader in developing good cultures, you need to understand how other people receive things and act as well. Not just saying this is how I do, so therefore just suck it up. Like, because if you're doing that, it's arrogant. That you're not actually caring about others, you're just caring about yourself.
Correct.
Now, it's good to communicate and let other people know this is how you responded. And that instance where I had my team member who kind of spoke out to me in a way that wasn't appropriate, I had to unpack and say, this is how I go about processing things, and sometimes that might impact you, and I understand that. I need you to come back at me in a positive way to let me know if that's impacting you inappropriately, because if I don't know that, you're going to get to a point where you're boiling up. And I think understanding people's personality types, how they deal with stress, conflict, how they communicate well, how they feel rewarded. I mean, you've got the 5 love languages, which is often referred to like how do people actually be made to feel good in that space. It's not just about paying them a bonus. Just because like money might be driving you doesn't mean that drives them in. But what actually is the driver for that team? I think the more you understand the individuals that you have in the team, the more you can try to bring an approach that isn't individual for every one of them, but ensures that every one of them has a say and feels appreciated amidst that process as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question that we get a 50-50 response, no expectations on this one. If you had your time over again, reflecting on lessons learned and decisions made, is there one thing you might do differently?
Only one thing?
Or as many as you like.
I jumped into business, starting my accounting firm at a young age, for all the best intentions. I was sick and tired of seeing the accounting industry being transactional. I thought it needed to be relational. So I jumped it for the right reasons, but I didn't spend enough time to understand that at the start. So if I was going to do this again, at that moment that I decided to start an accounting firm, I would actually I never did a business plan. I have never had a mission, never had a vision until like 4 or 5 years ago. So that stuff I really missed, and that's because I'd never run a business. And that's because I was an accountant, right? Because I was an accountant who was 26, who'd spent his whole career, whether it was within Big Four, like I started Big Four and then was in suburban accounting as well, mainly just doing tax returns and a little bit of this and that here and there. Didn't have that exposure. So if I did it again, I would probably invest more time in the upfront in terms of what I'm trying to achieve. And then if I can get a second one in there, systems and processes. Technology will not solve all your problems. Systems and processes with technology might solve most of them, or some of them. But what I found and what we've learned is because we are 100% cloud, a lot of automation, a lot of really interesting and cool stuff that we get to do that we just take for granted, like that's just how we do it, and other people are like, oh wow, that's cool. What I've learned is that if you don't respect the process, and you don't build, this is what it should look like, and these are the steps, and this is the checklist, and this is the things, what happens is you're going to have a big pile of mess at one point in time you're going to have to clean up. And that's been us for the last 12 months, of not respecting the process, and I'll probably be number one culprit there because, you know, the leader's like, I respect the process, I wrote the damn process, right? So I kind of go, well, we'll get around to it, you know, everybody else is here, and I recognise that, like, if the leader's not respecting the process, the people aren't going to respect the process, and all of a sudden the mess you get in. So we've been cleaning up that mess in the last probably 12 months, still, you know, doing good stuff and helping out, but internally there's been a lot of challenges we've faced to ensure that our business is actually designed to be sustainable and profitable ongoing, as opposed to, like, I don't want to say we'd be a flash in the pan, but like, let's ensure that, like, we aren't just kind of taking a quick win and then going, crap, now what do we do? Let's make sure this is set up well so I can pass it on to the people who are coming up behind me, because those people are going to do far greater with Illuminate than I ever will be able to. Hopefully I can just provide a platform that they can step onto and then keep going from there.
Yeah, well done. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure today.
Cheers, mate.
Any final parting comments you'd like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, look, I guess the only thing I'd probably throw there, and it's probably like a bit of a life mantra for me as well, it comes around people who, if you know who I am, I'm very big on authenticity, I'm very big on embracing who you are, you know, trying to be as confident in that space without bordering on arrogance. But something that's been coming up a lot, speaking to a lot of business owners lately, a lot of people who've been going through tough times as well, is this phrase of you're not defined by what you're going through, but how you go through it. And I'm going through that right now in the midst of some stuff as well. I just have to consistently remind myself that how I go through this moment in business, in life, with a client, whatever it looks like, is the defining part, not what I'm going through. And I think as we grow businesses and as we work with clients and as we're trying to do all cool and crazy accounting stuff, is that sometimes we get caught up in what we're doing as opposed to why or how we go about doing that. So that's the last parting moment I want to throw out there, is just be aware of how you're going through that moment so you can look back and be proud of that, as well as you can see the impact that has made on other people around you too.
Yeah. Well done. Andrew van der Beek, thank you for joining us.
Cheers, mate.
It's been great.
My pleasure.